In 2016, Alexei Kruglov began seeking help and treatment for headaches, mood swings, and depression. After years of institutions, suicide attempts, and despair, he was diagnosed with type 2 bipolar disorder and heavy depression, and was prescribed brom dihydrochlorphenyl benzodiazepine. It's a benzodiazepine that is only available in the former Soviet republics. Alexei lives in Yaroslav, Russia, about 250 kilometers northeast of Moscow, where he builds some of the most unique guitar pedals I've ever heard under the company name Ezhi Aka. I don't remember how I first came across his pedals, but even before hearing them, the raw metal works of art struck me as somehow referring to classical landscapes and etchings, and to debris one might find beneath the ruins of some brutalist architecture. His pedals lean towards the glitch. They are noisy and unpredictable. They have controls, but each parameter seems to inform the other and generate a really unique sort of chaos. Each pedal is like its own site for discovery. They are not clean or warm. You wouldn't describe them with any of the same words you would use to describe vintage analog equipment. Instead, they are digital and crunchy, even when they might drown you in meandering, dreamy textures. If I understand his tech and process correctly, he doesn't use contemporary DSP. Instead, he uses outdated 90s chips and sort of uses them against themselves. I first connected with Alexei when I was interested in his Terverb pedal, wondering when there would be more of them made and if I could order them from him directly. His response was something I really appreciated. He checked if Perfect Circuit, the music instrument shop in Burbank, California, had any in stock, and emailed me back suggesting that I buy from them rather than directly from him, as Perfect Circuit would more assuredly get one to me rather than depend on him, since, through his mental health struggles, he might not be so reliable. I have since then ordered and received a few pieces of gear from him and was duly rewarded for my patience. I should note, I am not oversharing my personal communications with Alexei. He is very open about his condition, and he knows about this video, which I hope does his project justice. What I really want to talk about here is how his struggle with mental health and the mental health system in Russia, and how he has nonetheless gone undeterred from being an entrepreneur who supplies the world with these singular audio manglers, led him to create a really special fuzz pedal, the brom dihydrochlorphenyl benzodiazepine, named after the drug he was prescribed and took for 5 years. Neither the doctors at his mental institution nor his primary private doctor warned him that he could, and did, become addicted, as his tolerance was rendering it ineffective in his treatment. Thankfully, he has since then kicked it. Fuzz pedals have been a guitar effect since the 1960s. And are core to the sound of much of rock's history. I love using fuzz, it's integral to a lot of my music. But when I work with the diazepine pedal, I'm always discovering new uses for it. It has 3 sections: noise fuzz, tape fuzz, amp fuzz. But none of those are as simple as those descriptions. As an aside, this is not a pedal demo video. There are plenty of demonstrations of Alexei's pedals on Instagram and YouTube if you want a full exhibition of his work. Very central to most of the music I make is that I treat synths like guitars. Most significantly, I plug my synth into guitar pedals and guitar amps. So I watch a lot of gear demos on YouTube to see and hear what effects are out there. But part of the problem with this arrangement is that because I route synths through guitar pedals, I'm rarely able to get a sense of what these pedals might do for me, as almost all of the demonstration videos use guitars. Maybe more significantly, most guitar pedal demo videos feature a guitar player testing out some gear by playing the most traditional blues rock imaginable. And I'm sure that by doing so, they're aiming at some sort of median utilitarian style of playing that could translate as generically as possible to the greatest number of musicians. However, that has nothing to do with what I want to hear or what I want to make. So I always have to do a sort of projection where I hear some blues rock stylings from the 70s through a delay pedal and then try to estimate how a synth would sound through that pedal. My estimation's usually pretty wrong, and it's a bit of gear buying roulette. But I don't know that I've ever regretted any pedal that I've ever bought, because even if it turns out that it performs for my synths totally unlike I had hoped, it's still a coloration that I can add to my palette. Ezhi Aka pedals are to the extreme in both directions. They are always totally unlike how I thought they might sound on my synths, but end up being these strange affectations I return to often. Alexei began building pedals in 2012 to create his own effects for his 10-string Chapman stick knockoff that he bought on eBay. He kept developing his effects until sometime after 2014 he was able to quit his job as a mortician to pursue building full-time. When you go to a museum or an art gallery, and you're going from room to room and you take it all in, do you ever observe people who walk straight to the tag next to the art and read it before they even look at the art? I am that person. I would almost say I am resolutely that person. It might appear that I'm looking for some sort of explanation or validation from experts before I even perceive the work itself, but I am not. It's not that I look to the words of the experts or look for a familiar name before I take in the art on its own terms. It's that I tend to think of art more conceptually. How it is framed is just as important to me as the thing itself. I want the story, I want the history, I want to understand the context. I don't really believe there is such a thing as the thing in itself. I think everything is about context and who made it and when and why. And I get really interested when that backstory really lights up the work. Alexei's background and how his life story intersects with the aesthetics of Ezhi Aka are fascinating to me. He could be writing angry music or a beautiful novel about overcoming, but for now, he's creating these unique organisms for other musicians to filter their own ideas through. I asked Alexei, when did you start feeling different? Or when did you realize that maybe something was wrong or needed medical intervention? And he replied, in childhood. I was not like the other children, being totally controlled and abused by my mother. This got worse when I reached puberty. I had really strong anxiety all the time, very bad self-esteem, and still being harassed and abused by my mother as well as other children. I performed very well at school, all A grades, all the time, and this was my only goal and the only life I had then. He has been taking pre-orders on an as yet unreleased pedal called The Bad Mother, continuing his effects as autobiography narrative. Pretty dark, but I'm excited to hear what it can do. I highly recommend checking out Ezhi Aka's pedals, and if you're like me and want to see the tag on the wall next to the art, ezhiaka.com has a page marked Mental Illness Story, where he gives some more of the biography that led to his pedal company. I'll link to it below. But you can also, in a sense, be a part of that biography by buying and using his pedals.